It all started when a snippet of their interview went viral again on social media. With a relaxed but meaningful tone, Jimin said that Jungkook's house is not just a symbol of success. People only see the size of the house, he said softly, but they don't know the reason behind it. That simple sentence is like knocking on the consciousness of many people. All this time the public has been too busy comparing numbers and luxury, as if forgetting that behind every achievement there is a long journey that is not always easy. Jungkook, who is known as the golden magne with a myriad of achievements, is indeed often the center of attention. Since debuting at a very young age, he has shown extraordinary dedication. However, Jimin hinted that the journey was never as easy as it looked. There was a time when Jungkook was still a teenager, leaving his hometown to pursue his dream in Seoul. There were long practice nights that made him fall asleep in the studio. There is a longing for the family that he has to hide for the sake of the great responsibility he has chosen. According to Jimin, the luxury house is a symbol of an old promise. A child's promise to his family that one day he will provide a comfortable, safe, and happy place to live. He often says that he wants to make his parents proud, said Jimin, with a look in his eyes that seemed to be back to their trainee days. The house is not about showing off. It's about replying. That remark made many army silent. So far, speculation about Jungkook's house has more often revolved around the fantastic numbers and architectural design. But Jimin's statement turned the direction of the narrative. The house that is said to be like a palace turns out to be standing on the foundation of the memory of the struggle. There are stories about the times when they were unknown, when the income was uncertain, when every small success felt like a big victory. Jimin even admitted that he had visited and felt a different atmosphere there. The house is warm, he said, smiling, not because of the interior, but because of the way he talks about his family. The sentence is simple, but full of emotion, as if to emphasize that true luxury does not lie in material shine, but in the intention and love that comes with it. In the midst of the entertainment world that is often harsh and full of pressure, the friendship between Jimin and Jungkook is always an interesting topic. The two grew up together under the camera, going through the teenage to adult phase in one long journey. So when Jimin spoke, the public knew that it was not just an ordinary comment. He witnessed directly how Jungkook worked tirelessly, how he carried great expectations as the youngest member who must always look perfect. There is one most touching moment from Jimin's confession. He said that Jungkook once said, "I want mom and dad not to worry anymore." That sentence sounds simple, but in the context of their life journey, it feels very deep. A child who left home in his teens, struggled in a big city, and was finally able to provide comfort for his family. Isn't that many people's dream? The public often forgets that behind the spotlight and loud applause, idols are also ordinary people with longing and a sense of responsibility. Jungkook may be known to the world as a global star, but for his family he is still a child who wants to make his parents smile. And according to Jimin, that's the point of all this. That grand house is just an outer form of love that has been nurtured for a long time. The reaction of the fans is also diverse. Many admitted that they were touched and began to see the house from a different point of view. It is no longer just a headline about luxury, but a story about travel, sacrifice, and devotion. Some even said that Jimin's statement made them appreciate Jungkook's hard work even more. But behind that sadness, there is a bigger lesson. The world often measures success by what it sees. In fact, the story behind the scenes is much more complex and humane. What Jimin shared seemed to be a reminder that every achievement has an emotional background that is not always known to the public. That night, video interviews kept spinning on various platforms. Jimin's words were quoted, shared, and discussed. And among all the comments and speculations, one thing became clear. Jungkook's house is now no longer just a symbol of wealth, but a symbol of the journey of a child who keeps his promises. Maybe this is the reason why Jimin's confession feels so evocative. He is not discussing luxury, but the value behind it. He is not praising the size of the building, but the generosity of his best friend. And in a world that is often fascinated by the external shine, stories like this become a breath of fresh air that reminds us of the true essence of success. In the end, the story about the house is not only about Jungkook. He becomes a mirror for many people who are struggling, who keep their promises in silence, who work hard for their families. If it is true that the house stands majestically today, then it is a monument of hard work, loyalty to dreams, and love that never goes out. And maybe that's where the real luxury lies. The wave of conversation turned out to be still not subsided. After Jimin's statement was widely spread, the public seemed to open their eyes to the other side of the luxury that they had only valued from the outside. Many remember Jungkook's long journey since the beginning of joining BTS, when he was still a teenager with big dreams and courage that might even be bigger than his age at that time. Behind the spotlight of the camera and the glitter of the world stage, Jungkook was once a child who had to adapt to the harshness of the entertainment world. He grew up under the pressure of public expectations, learned to be perfect in the eyes of millions of people, while still longing for a simple but warm home. When Jimin mentioned that the luxury house kept a touching story, many began to connect the past points that had been missed. There is a story about Jungkook who practices until late at night, who chooses to stay in the studio rather than go back to the dormitory to perfect one last note. There was a moment when he stood on the international stage, receiving the cheers of thousands of spectators. But after that, he secretly called home just to hear his mother's voice. All of that, according to Jimin, is part of the reason why the house was built so seriously. He never forgets where he came from, said Jimin in a follow-up interview clip that again stole attention. His tone was soft but firm. He seems to want to make sure that the public understands one thing. Behind all global achievements, Jungkook still holds tightly to his simple but strong family values. Some fans even started to reshare old clips, when Jungkook once said that he wanted to avenge his parents' sacrifices. Those sentences now feel much more meaningful. The grand house that used to be a hot topic of conversation has now turned into a symbol of the success of a child who keeps his childhood promises. What makes this story even more touching is the way Jimin tells it. He didn't sound jealous or just praised. There was sincere pride in his eyes, as if he also felt part of the journey. Their friendship, which has been tested by time and industry pressure, seems to be getting stronger in moments like this. Jimin knows very well how Jungkook works in silence, how he shoulders a big responsibility without complaining much. On one occasion, Jimin even mentioned that Jungkook often thinks about small things that other people may not think of. He wants to make sure his parents are comfortable. Even small things like home lighting or a quiet space to rest, that's what he thought about, he said. Those small details show that the house is not just a big project, but the embodiment of real affection. The public's reaction changed drastically. If previously there were many comments with a tone of admiration mixed with surprise for luxury, now more have written feelings of sadness and respect. The story shared by Jimin seems to shift the focus from numbers and architecture to value and meaning. The house is now seen as a symbol of the long journey of a child who grew up under the spotlight of the world, but never lost his way. In the midst of the ongoing discussion, many realize that this story goes beyond just a celebrity story. It's about dreams, about invisible hard work, about tears falling far from the camera. Jungkook may stand on the grand stage of the world, but he is still a child who wants to make his family smile proudly. And that's where the strength of this story lies. When Jimin chose to speak bluntly, he was not only defending his best friend from superficial judgment. He reminds the world that true success never stands alone. There is a supportive family. There are difficult times. There are promises that are kept slowly but surely. Now, every time Jungkook's name and his luxury house are mentioned again, there is a different narrative that comes with it. It is no longer just about splendor, but about a long inner journey. About a child who leaves home at a young age, struggles in a big city, faces global pressures, and is finally able to build a decent home for the people he loves.